Hey guys, this is Matthew Wynn. I'm going to teach you how to do a forecasted income statement and balance sheet in less than 15 minutes. Let's jump right into the Excel sheet and get this done. All right, so what we can do here is I'm actually going to copy these tables over. That way I can get a common formatting for each. You could also just lock the column on the first here and just freeze column here. But I'm going to undo that. That way we can just do it the way that I have it here. So we're going to unfreeze the panes now. All right, so what we can do is let's actually make a title here first. So common size vertical analysis, right? Common size vertical analysis. I'm not going to merge the cells because sometimes that can cause some issues. So we're just going to go alignment, center across justification. All right, perfect. Horizontal analysis, and this is considered common base. All right, looking pretty good. All right, so what we want to do essentially here is let's just clear this out first. We're going to clear these out first. All right, so the common size vertical analysis, you're going to be doing everything as a percentage of our gross sales. So what we can do here is we can do this cell divided by this cell again. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to lock this cell based on the row here. So you put a money sign in between. That way we can pull it down easily. So let's pull this down. All right, looking pretty good, looking pretty good. And if you want to do a quick check, what you can do is just sum this up. So let's do this by sum this line item by these line items by these line items by this line item. Should get 1. All right, so perfect. So now we have everything as a percentage of our gross sales. We have everything as a percentage of our gross sales. And that what we can do there is we can apply this to each year. So we have everything as a percentage of our gross sales here. We have it year over year. As we can see, those numbers are pretty stagnant, but in other scenarios, if let's say we were to change this to 90,000, then it would change a bit. So let's actually just leave that changed a bit so you can see a little differentiation in these numbers. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking an average of all of these. So we're going to say on average, gross sales is 100% of gross sales, right? Which makes sense. But we can say on average, all of these other line items are this percentage of our gross sales. So we know that year over year, our averages are a little bit different than what we have here. And like I said, if you go in and change some of these expenses, so let's say selling general administrative was 8,000 in the year 2022 and 9,000 in 2023. What we can do here is we can see that these percentages change as well. What we're trying to do is we're trying to forecast into the future, right? So we have 2024, 2025, 2026, right? So how do we get those next numbers? Because if we just use gross profit as a percentage of gross sales as a percentage of gross sales, we're going to get 100%. So this is where the common base comes into play. And what you can do here is you can show the growth rate over time. So we're not going to have one for 2021 because we don't have 2020. But what we can do is we can do the new 2023 minus the old, right? So what we can do here is we can show our new, right, minus the old divided by the old. And that will get us a growth rate. And what we're going to do in this scenario is we're going to get our, I'm going to fix this formula real quickly. We're going to get our percentage of growth year over year. We can pull that over and we can see that our revenues have grown by 20% to 17%. We're going to take an average here. And this is what's going to drive our gross sales growth, right? 18%. So this will drive that top line over here. It'll drive that top line. And the rest of those items are going to be a percentage of our gross sales. Now we can do this analysis for all those items. So I'll just pull this down so you can see, right? But we're only really going to use the top line to forecast our gross sales. And I'm coming up on the 5-minute mark, so unfortunately we're only doing the income statement in 5 minutes, but we'll get to the balance sheet in a second too. All right, so the next thing that we can do is forecast. So we're gonna go 2023 times 1 plus our growth rate average. We'll lock this down, close it up. Now we have our income forecasted over time. And now that we have our income forecasted over time, and I'll change these all to currencies so it makes it a little bit easier to look at, we can now forecast everything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock the row on the gross sales, and we're going to lock the column on the average over here, right? So if we pull this down, perfect, boom, we get our common size income statement. So let's just do something to check real quick. So if we do this divided by our 2023 gross sales, we should get 13% as our average, as we did for the net income. And there you go. We have the forecasted financial statement, income statement, and next we will do the balance sheet. All right, next let's jump over to the balance sheet. So it's going to be literally plug and play from the income statement, the same concept, except everything is going to be a percentage of our total assets instead. So we're not going to be doing everything as a percentage of gross sales. Everything's going to be a percent of total assets. So let's copy this same table over, right? Everything is going to be the same table over. And I will caution that doing this for the balance sheet is not the most effective way to forecast, but it is a way to forecast the balance sheet. The same thing for the income statement. Things can change, right? Things can change over time, and it's not always best practice to forecast based on a common size. But for this purpose, all intentions and purposes, we're going to do it this way. So I'm just cleaning things up just a little bit. All right. Let's copy this over. So now we have our common size vertical analysis, and we have our common base horizontal analysis. I'm moving quick, guys. I'm moving quick. All right, so same thing as before. Except this time everything's going to be a percent of total assets, right? Everything's going to be a percent of total assets. So what we can do is let's divide this by our total assets. And remember, we don't want to lock the first cell. We just want to lock the second one. And we're actually going to lock the row here again. That way, when we pull this down, it will not only work for this year, but it'll work for all the years. So we pull this down. All right, and this should indicate that this is correct, that this one and this one add up together, right? Because total liabilities plus equity equals total assets. You could also forecast liabilities based off of total liabilities and equity based off of equity. It's a little bit more accurate. That way you can get the breakdown of liabilities and equity. But for this example, we're just going to forecast based off total assets. So if I pull this over, right, we get the same kind of format here. I'm going to make this percentages, and then let's copy over our format from this beautiful table over here. All right, so we have this now, and let's get our averages again. So let's just do average of these years. All right, I'll pull this down, and I'll change this all to percentages. And forgive me for the formatting is not the most pretty formatting, but it'll do what's intended to do for this exercise. All right, so we're almost done here, guys. The last thing that we're going to do is do the growth rates again, right? We're going to do the horizontal analysis. So for this one, we can quickly forecast based off of total assets again. So total assets is going to grow like total revenue, or total gross sales in the last one, or total revenue, whatever you want to call it. So we'll go new minus old divided by the old. So new minus old by the old. All right. Perfect. So assets grew by, oops, that doesn't seem right. What did we do wrong? Nope, that is incorrect. It's new minus old. No, I don't know why that got in there. All right, so 14%, that's a little better. So grew by 14%. And again, let's just do this for the entirety of this statement, even though we're not going to use it. Just want to get the ugly format out of here. So let's copy this. All right, and again, we're going to get the average here. So we'll get the average, we'll pull it down, boom, and we're good to go. We're solid. So now we can forecast the balance sheet. So let's do that. Let's forecast the balance sheet. So we'll do 2024, 2025, 2025, 226. All right, so let's forecast total assets first, right? Because we're going to have that grow over time. So 1 plus this average growth rate. We're going to lock this one down, which we can honestly just lock the entirety of it down. All right, that looks good. So it's growing over time by that amount. And then again, everything on this statement is going to be a percentage of those total assets. I'll change this to currency again. That way it makes it a little bit easier to look at. All right, so cash is going to be this total assets. Cash is going to be this total assets, which we will lock the row here, but not the column. That way we could pull it over, and we'll multiply this by our average for cash. We'll lock the column here, but not the row. So if I pull this down, all right, and let's do some sanity here. Let's do some sanity here. Boom plus boom. That should equal this number. All right, perfect. Let's copy this over, pull it over, paste it down, and we should be pretty solid. So we can always have a little check here. We can always check to see if this is correct, and then we're done. So if this equals more than 0, we know that this is off, and we're good. So balance sheet check. We could just say if this is equal to 0, then it's okay, and if not, you need to check your work. I will preface that the only thing I would say is this is not a great way to forecast for the balance sheet in practice, but what you can do as well is instead of forecasting just total assets, you do the total liabilities. So you do everything in this box for total liabilities and everything in equity based off equity. There's only one line item here, so that's pretty fine. And then the total assets, you could do everything off total assets again. And then another item is you don't want to necessarily make the totals based on the common size, right? So you want to make sure that these are actually doing some math instead of just being based on these ratios. And it's a little bit easier, more easily explained based on like these sub items. So current assets, for example, if I look here, it's 46%, but if I were to do a sum, I would get the same value, right? I would get the same value. And it's better to do the sum because let's say inventory changes, right? Let's say inventory changes to 20,000. That sum will change. This current assets won't necessarily change because of the way that this formula is set up. So if I go back and leave it as this common size and I do 20,000 here, that current assets isn't going to change, but that's incorrect. Same thing goes for the income statement. All these subline items, you want to do them as math. So if I do gross profit, we know is this minus this, we get 63,000. Same here. Let's copy that to operating income. Oops, incorrect. We have it's gross profit minus our OPEX. We should get the same numbers. All right, and then we'll do the net income this way too, minus the sum of this, and we get the same numbers. And again, the reason why we do that is because let's say one of our values, just there's an accounting error input. Let's say this is really 9,000,
If we have it built out with the sums, then things will change dynamically. If we don't, unfortunately, if I go and change this to 9,000 again, then this is going to be incorrect. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. All right, guys, thank you for watching this quick video on how to forecast an income statement and balance sheet using horizontal and vertical analysis. Please stay tuned for other videos. Take care and have a great day.